The Second World War was a military conflict that lasted from 1939 to 1945. The war was extended through almost all European countries, Japan, United States, China, and colonies in North Africa, Asia, and Oceania. This conflict was characterized by total war, which means that countries spent all that they can in order to defeat the enemy. There were many short-term reasons that caused the outbreak of the war. Well, one of the main causes was the rising powers at this time, such as the Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, the fascist Italy, led by Benito Mussolini, and the Japanese Empire. Germany invaded the Tsar, Greenland, Czechoslovakia, and Austria. The occupations of Manchuria and the north of China from the Japanese side. France and Great Britain supported an appeasement policy towards Germany and Italy in order to avoid a war, but they declared war on Germany the 3rd of September of 1939, when Hitler invaded Poland. He crossed a red line. The Axis formed by Italy, Germany, and Japan. The Allies. In 1939, Great Britain signed a pact with France of mutual support. The war was divided in 3 different phases. The first phase. In 1940, after the invasion of Poland, German forces occupied Denmark and Norway to the north, and Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France to the west. In 1941, using blitzkrieg tactics, also known as line in war, Hitler ordered the invasion of the USSR. This invasion was called Operation Barbarossa. For Stalin was a surprise because he didn't expect that Hitler would break the non-aggression pact. Due to this, Stalin joined the Allies. He adopted the scorched earth policy, which consisted of the destruction of anything that the enemy could use, such as crops or industry. In Africa, in 1940, the Italians attacked the British protectorate of Egypt from Libya, helped by Germany army. Its objective was to gain control of the Suez Canal in order to control the Mediterranean Sea. In Asia and the Pacific, in 1941, Japan surprised the US Army with an attack on the American neutral base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. USA declared the war in Japan and joined the war on the side of the Allies. The second phase. The war in Africa ended, and in 1942, German and Italian troops continued to march towards Cairo and the Suez Canal. General Montgomery, who was in charge of the British Army, launched a counter-attack at the Battle of El Alamein. The Americans landed in Morocco and Algeria and advanced towards Tunisia, where the Germans and Italians were defeated in 1943. The Axis lost its position in Africa, and this allowed the Allies to attack southern Italy. Meanwhile, in Europe happened several events. Battle of Stalingrad, 1943. Germans occupied Stalingrad, but their Soviet army counter-attacked them, so they began to retreat from the USSR. Allied troops landed in Italy. Allied troops invaded most of the Italian peninsula. Conference of Tehran in 1943. Great Britain, United States, and the USSR agreed to open a new front in France, with the aim of liberating Western Europe. The Normandy landings, the 6th of June of 1944. Allied troops landed on the coast of Normandy, in France. They managed to force the Germans to retreat as far as Paris. In 1944, Paris was liberated. The Allies went towards Germany through France, USSR, and through Italy. In May of 1945, the Allied troops entered in Berlin, and Hitler committed suicide. In that moment, Germany surrendered. Between 1943 and 1945 happened the third phase. American aircraft carriers and submarines put an end on the Japanese control of the Pacific Islands. Meanwhile, American troops landed on the island of Guadalcanal. Battle of Philippine Sea in 1944. North Americans destroyed most of the Japanese aircraft carriers and almost all of its naval aircrafts. Japanese used kamikaze pilots to stop Allied troops, but it was not enough, and the Americans defeated them. Harry Truman, which was the US president in that moment, authorized to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In the 12th of September of 1943, Japan surrendered, and the Second World War ended. The war produced negative effects on their daily lives. The first one was the industry production, which was reduced and led into population shortages and rationing systems. Another one was the constant bombing on cities and movement to rural areas. There were several consequences to this war. 54 million people died and 65 million were injured. Most of them were civils for first time in a war. Europe was destroyed. Cities, industries, and most of the infrastructures were destroyed, creating a stop and a crisis in the European economy due to the loss of the 50% of the industrial power. It also affected to the agriculture because the harvests were stopped during the war. Although all this happened in Europe, the USA and the USSR continued with the weapons industry due to the fact of the possible Cold War. UK and France lost their economic leadership, and the USA became the most powerful, becoming the main prohibited of manufactured products.